Welcome to the Smith and Rowland Show. Let's join our host, Alan Smith and Jeff Rowland.
And hello again, world. It's Jeff Rowland, the most important part of the Smith and Rowland Show. Now I'll introduce to you my compadre, Mr. Alan Smith. How are you today, Mr. Alan Smith?
Well, I've, been called a lot of things. Compadre, I'm not sure how you interpret that in today's woke language. That you got to be careful. Got to be careful.
You got to be awfully careful.
When people starts calling you names.
Because somebody might get offended.
Somebody might get offended, and there you'd be, just right there.
And then I'll probably be called a bully because I called you compadre.
That's right. That's kind of what went on there last night. I don't know if you know it or not, but old Biden and Trump had what they call a debate. A debate means where you bait each other, then you take it away. And that's kind of what it looked like to me last night.
That's right.
They debated, and I'm not sure. What's your takeaway from it, Mr. Roller? Frame it up for us and tell us what went on there.
Well, I'll tell you what, I had about 3 takeaways, and one was I found myself, this will shock many, I found myself feeling an incredible amount of compassion for Joe Biden.
Okay.
I felt sorry for him as a person, as an individual, as a man. And I felt sorry for him because I feel like he's being abused. He shouldn't be allowed to get up there and knowing the condition that he's in. Now, today, all of the Democrat Party is coming out and they're saying, man, we didn't know, we didn't realize. I don't believe that. They knew in 2020, cognitively, he was slipping. And to act like they're surprised now, I think it's just a lie. I think it's a lie.
Yeah,
so one of my takeaways was I did feel sorry for Joe Biden. Another takeaway is I fear that the rest of the world and leaders from other nations around the world, they see us in a very vulnerable state today. We have several months before Joe Biden leaves office, and they know that Joe Biden's not running the country. And if he's not, the question's been asked, ever since he got voted in, who's running the country? Some people have said it's Barack Obama, and some people said it's others. I personally think that it's his wife. I think Jill Biden's making the decisions and telling Joe what he's supposed to say and telling Joe that's what I feel. That was another takeaway I had because she flew in after the debate. Her and Joe Biden spoke to a group of people that kind of an after debate party, I guess you would say. She kind of spearheaded everything that was going on there. She's the one that led him off stage.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when the debate was over. And I don't know. Those are a couple of takeaways I had. I fear that nations around the world's looking at us differently, and as a vulnerable country with a president that they know they can manipulate. I believe that his wife is running the nation. That's happened before in this nation's history with a weakened president. I think it's happening again.
Well,
and I think
she's got the most influence.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the Democrat Party is trying to fool the rest of the world into thinking, and the news media as well, they're trying to fool the rest of the world into thinking that they had no idea that he was in as bad a shape as he's in. And I don't believe that. I just believe that's a lie. I think they did know. I don't think they care. What they were after then was to get rid of Donald Trump, and they're using Joe Biden to try to do it. And they're trying to do it through an abuse of the system of law. And they're calling it lawfare. But nonetheless, you can't watch that debate last night, Alan, and come away with anything else than to know that we are in a horrible mess with the current president and administration that we have.
Well, Jeff, for debate's sake, debates are supposed to help you decide which man you would want for the job. That's the whole purpose of debate. And of course, the Democrats were wanting to get rid of Trump any way they can. But it looks like via this debate that what they accomplished was totally getting rid of Joe Biden, probably once and for all.
And ask yourself this question. This is the first time I know it's the first time in my lifetime that you've had a presidential debate prior to the Republican convention and the Democrat convention. That's never happened before. So for it to be this early in the process And them to go ahead with this debate would cause you to believe.
Well, I think
they was wanting that to happen so they could go to the convention and
Yeah.
choose somebody else.
I think that's what was accomplished, because for sure there's more people on the news media, bar none, but what they're talking about, who are they going to replace Joe Biden with?
Yeah.
And of course, you and I have discussed offline, what does it take for the Democratic Party to replace Joe Biden? And it seems like it's a little more complicated than the Republican Party. But nonetheless, I think what happened, of what I'm seeing as far as the reporters here, the greatest takeaway, the number one takeaway, is who's going to be replacing Joe Biden come election day. Because, and I'm with you, Jeff, it's just pitiful to watch how, I just don't get it why. I mean, his wife, if nothing else, would surely to goodness love him enough to help him make the decision.
You would think,
to step down. Now, but on the other hand, I'll be honest with you, Joe Biden surprised me. I didn't think he would do as well as he did, Jeff.
Yeah.
I really didn't. I know he messed up a lot of places and all, and he'd really, it's pitiful. But
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be worse than that, just between me and you. Not that that's saying anything. For him to go the full 90 minutes.
Exactly.
Really and truly kind of fooled me. It would not have surprised me had he not made the full 90 minutes. But nonetheless, he did. But it was very sad. But I think where we are this morning, you better believe there was a lot of Democratic meetings going on this morning on who we're going to replace him with. And I think that was the big accomplishment last night, Jeff.
Yeah, I do too. It's sad. I will say this. If they don't replace Joe Biden, Donald Trump has to be the next president of the United States. Even if you hate the guy, I can't imagine someone voting for him and placing our nation at such vulnerable risk as what we would be with a president that has zero cognitive ability to communicate even a simple sentence. Have
you looked at, on X, formerly Twitter, have you read some of those comments like Maria Shriver?
I've read some. I haven't read hers, but I've read some, yeah.
And let me read hers here. Of course, it's very sympathetic towards Joe. But she said, I love Joe Biden. I know he's a good man. I know his heart is good. I know he's dedicated to our country and is surrounded by good people. Tonight was heartbreaking in many ways. This is a big political moment. There's panic in the Democratic Party. It's going to be a long night. Now, that's the last part of that, I think, is totally correct in what she put up on X there, that I think is definitely what was accomplished. If you go down in this article here, Jeff, it says Donald Trump did what he needed to do. Donald Trump, he wasn't as ruthless as he has been in times past, I didn't think. I mean, he had the Donald Trump signature, but he could have bared some teeth in there a whole lot harder than what he did.
He really could. And 4 years ago, he would have. But I honestly, when there was one time when Joe Biden froze up and he was looking for words, and Donald Trump looked over at him and then looked away and then looked back because he just couldn't find his words. And Donald Trump normally would have just unleashed unmercifully, and he didn't do it. There was another time where Donald Trump was supposed to have responded to what Joe Biden said, and he couldn't. He even made the statement. He said, I really didn't understand what he said. And he said, I don't think he did either.
Here is the actual response you're referring to, if you'd like me to read it. He said to him, Mr. Trump, what is your response to what President Biden just said? Trump said, I honestly don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
Yeah. And when he said that, I mean, he's Donald Trump. So, he's got that kind of, this is going to be offensive to some, but kind of a New York attitude that it's matter of fact, that sort of thing. He's always been that way. But the Donald Trump before would have just ranted and raved about that very thing, and he didn't do it. He let it go.
Yeah.
He made that statement and he let it go. And there was one point where they both got into an argument over their golf score of all things. Now, here we are, and there's something in the article about that too, but, Donald Trump's the one that stopped that. Well, normally he wouldn't. Yeah.
Right.
But nonetheless.
Trump said, let's stop acting like children.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, and friend, if Donald Trump has to say that, it's pretty bad.
I think the most curt thing that Donald Trump said during the debate, that he did say this might have been a little over the line, maybe, I don't know. They was talking about the Middle East conflict, and Trump made a statement. He said Joe Biden wouldn't even make a good Palestinian. He's too weak to even do that. So,
Oh my
you
God.
know,
That's
that
pretty
was
brutal.
a little curt. But the thing that did surprise me is those CNN moderators, I thought, did a very good job. Anyway, if for what that's worth,
Well,
I don't know.
Let me say this to you. I mean, I do too. I agree. Think everything that I've heard, they did a fantastic job, really. But it still seemed to me, and I'm okay with it, but it seemed to me that the whole debate with no audience, especially, it seemed like to me it was still kind of set up in Biden's favor.
Oh Lord, yeah, it was. The debate,
you know what I'm
the
saying?
timing of the debate,
Yeah.
and the rules of the debate was all set by Joe Biden.
Yeah, it seems to me that it was just kind of in his favor, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. But I mean, I'm okay with it.
It was just a sad time for me. It was a sad time for our country. And people can think that's over dramatizing, whatever you think. But let me tell you something. In the vacuum of true leadership, something's going to fill that void. And
Yeah.
that's more scary than what we saw from Joe Biden last night. It's obvious he's not running the country. That's painfully obvious. But what is more threatening than the inability of Joe Biden to be able to think clearly is who is doing the thinking. And we don't know.
Yeah, that's Jeff, at the bottom of that article we're looking at there is called The Aftermath, which I thought is something to look at. Where are we, the aftermath? Of course, you and I are discussing some of that right now. But it says, we'll see over the next few days how much Biden's performance will hurt him in the polls. Pollster Frank Luntz had some ominous news for Team Biden during the debate. Do you see that by Frank?
Yeah.
He pronounces his last name there, but
Frank Luntz is his name.
Luntz.
Yeah, and he's known for bringing people together and then doing like snap polls of a small group of people and that sort of thing. He said after the first commercial break, I asked my focus group of undecided voters how many of them are more convinced to vote for Joe Biden. 0 raised their hands. Half of them say they voted for Biden in 2020.
Wow.
Yeah, it's bad. It's just really bad, especially when you see MSNBC and CNN's news anchors talking about how bad Joe Biden did. If they're saying that, then it's worse.
It's worse than your Because I really think our sadness over the individual of Joe Biden's is what keeps us as understanding as we are.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I honestly believe at this point, to vote for Joe Biden, I think you're part of the abuse of an elder. I believe I think it's dishonorable, and I think we're playing a part in that. And I think that's, that I don't know. You've known this about me. I think you would agree. I can't dating back to when I was in my 20s, and I'm a long ways from that now. But even back in my 20s, there was something inside of me that you honored the elderly and the aged. You honored them to whatever degree you could. You honored those that had went before you. And this is so dishonorable to put him in that spot and to put him in that place. And I think it's abuse. I think it's just abuse.
I think you and I both agree that it looks like that he'll be replaced. Now, there's been several on the prophetic side. You remember Chris Reed actually said prophetically that Biden would not make it. He would not be the presidential candidate for the Democratic Party. It looks like to me also at the bottom of that article there, Jeff, it says, we will also see if the phrase 25th Amendment starts trending because this debate not only put into question Joe Biden's viability as a candidate in 24, but whether he is fit enough to continue to serve as president another day.
Yeah.
And then it says here, replacing Biden is trending now on X.
Yeah.
Well, then you got the Her report came out, and Biden and the White House gave the excuse that Biden's mental lapses in the interview came from this enormous stress of dealing with the terrorist attack on Israel. Well, Joe Biden spent the previous 7 days holding up at Camp David doing nothing but resting, prepping for the debate. Now, here's what this author said. We got the best Joe Biden has to give last night.
Yeah.
He can only get worse. And that's a true statement right there. And then he went on to say, and he finishes up this article, we do not just have a campaign in trouble. We have a country in crisis.
Yeah. And I believe
renewed prayer for our nation is in order, is where he concluded they are.
And I think that's right, Al. I mean, the Democrat Party's in a jam because even the Democrats, well, I say not all of them, but there is a large segment of the Democrats that is way fearful of Kamala Harris as president.
Oh, mercy, and me too. Can I be one?
Yeah, I am too. Yeah. Oh, Lord, yeah. I would rather have the current situation than I would to have a Kamala Harris presidency.
Well, it looks like to me, though.
The thing is, they're trying to prop Joe Biden up until they can get to the convention. And at the convention, they're hopeful to talk Joe Biden into releasing his delegates. Then you have an open convention. But if you pull him out of the office right now, Kamala Harris is the president, and she becomes the incumbent that is running against Donald Trump. So, I mean.
Okay, there's your choice. Gavin Newsom or Kamala Harris? My
choice is my youngest pit bull, Chapel, would make a better president than either one of those. I've talked with Chapel. We have prayed about it. She is willing to throw her hat in the ring and to run on the Democrat side. You know,
you need to give our listeners a little bit more context of who Chapel is and Preacher.
Yeah. Well, Preacher is my adult pit bull, and Chapel is his little sister, several years younger. And Chapel's very liberal. Preacher's very conservative. They're constantly bickering. I mean, listen, that debate last night, nothing in comparison to what Preacher and Chapel did. And so Chapel she's willing to throw her hat in the ring.
Yeah, there you have it.
I was going to pray for him the other night, and Preacher spoke up, and he said, no, the Bible says, lay paws on no dog suddenly. So,
Rowland, you won't do, buddy. All right, Rowland, let's call it a day there.
All right, sounds good.
We'll see what happens on this planet tomorrow. Have a good one, buddy.
Good. You too, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining today's Smith and Rowland Show. You can check out our website at kingdompropheticsociety.org and our daily Unplugged podcast at smithandrowlandshow.podbean.com. You can also join us on Amazon, Apple, or Spotify.